Welcome to the Liberty Show, where we talk about American classical education and invite you to join us in the work of improving the moral and intellectual virtue and character of the next generation. My name is Matthew Kirby. I'm the CEO of Liberty Classical Schools, and we exist to launch and support K-12 American classical charter schools in the metro Atlanta area. And we're delighted that you're joining us today. You can read more about Liberty Classical Schools at libertyclassicalschools.org. Today, my guest is someone I've wanted to talk with on this show for a really long time. He's a good friend and a great member of our team at Atlanta Classical Academy. His name is Mr. Zach Stone. Zach joined the faculty at ACA in 2019. He is a middle school history teacher and also the history department chair. Mr. Stone coaches basketball. He's coached soccer for us. He is a 2018 graduate of Hillsdale College, and last year completed a Master of Arts in the Humanities with a concentration in classical education from the University of Dallas. And I'm going to ask him a little bit about that in a few minutes. Perhaps most importantly, in 2024, he was Atlanta Classical Academy's Teacher of the Year, which was a distinction that he earned with overwhelming support from the faculty, staff, and leadership team for his contributions to our students and to the faculty and parents and the whole school community. So, Mr. Stone, it's a delight to have you.
It's great to be here. It's funny, I actually wore my Teacher of the Year shoes today.
Nice.
And it's the first time I've worn them. so
all right, tell me about those shoes. What's distinctive about those?
They have the ACA colorway, and they're just regular Air Maxes, and every year they give them to people that win Teacher of the Year. Mr. Franklin, I'm going to out him right now. His are pretty beat up.
There you go.
I was asking him if he was wearing them today, and he's not. Mr. Garrett Holt is wearing his as well. So it's kind of one of those funny things where you walk by on campus on Friday or Spirit Day, and you know what Teachers of the Year are wearing their shoes. And,
That's awesome.
And this was the first time I've actually done it. So
that's great.
That's really cool.
Well, oddly, we're on the topic of apparel, but you and I have dressed almost identically today. And I was joking with you earlier. I feel like this is an outfit, sort of jacket, blue shirt, and khaki pants that I certainly wore in middle school when I had to dress up, and maybe that's appropriate because we're going to talk a little bit about middle school.
Feels very education.
It does.
I don't know why, but it does.
It does. Well, let's start there. I was kind of thinking about middle school, and there's hardly a child on the planet who would say that they would like to go back to middle school. Middle school can be a tough time of a person's life, and yet there are teachers like you who have spent a lot of time in middle school who find it really exhilarating and love being there. Yeah. So I wanted you to just maybe talk a little bit about that. What's special about teaching in middle school?
I've been doing it, as you said, some people kind of do it a lot. I've done it for 7 years. The last 6 years I've done 7th and 8th grade. For 2 of those years I did 6 classes, 3 sections of 7th, 3 sections of 8th, and taught the whole day through. And I don't know, there is something special about that age. 7th graders are bouncing off the walls with energy. They have such curiosity. They want to know things, and they want to know them deeply, and they ask crazy questions. The most out there questions, but they have such energy. And if you channel that energy well, they're going to do such great work for you. And if you can get them kind of into the story, whether that's history or math or whatever it is, they're going to love it. Your passion, your energy, if you match them, they're going to be right there with you. 8th grade, for me, is my favorite. I love teaching 8th graders. As I was leaving, my 8th graders, they wanted to shout out. So this is my shout out to all the 8th graders out there.
I think you should.
And I tell them almost every day that I love them, and they really have grown into such a great group of people. And then that's the thing about 8th grade is that 8th graders are kind of small adults. They're starting to become more mature. They can, if you let them, become really apathetic and really angry about things. And cynical, right? Like they're starting to kind of see how kind of the world works and these different disparities, and they have this really strong sense of justice, which is really cool, but it can lead to some pain points. But they, like the 7th graders, have big questions. They want to know things, and they have this energy for life, and you can see it in the way that they talk in the classroom, which sometimes is too much, but that's okay, right? Like they're learning how to do these things. And I think for 8th graders, the really cool thing that I've done with them the last 2 years is Fridays we do fun warm-ups, and it's just a question. And there's no censorship. So like any question can be asked, such as one I did was, what's your least favorite part of school?
Mm-hmm.
What rule do you not like at ACA? And I've told other teachers this, and they're like, you're crazy opening that door. And it's like, yeah, but at the same time, I'm teaching them how to talk respectfully about things that they don't like, instead of complaining or speaking, down about teachers or others. Instead, let me show you how to have an adult conversation about something that's bothering you.
Yeah, healthy conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's been incredible. So, I've had students talk about all kinds of different things with these questions, no matter what they are. And my favorite ones have to do with like rules that they don't like, because they all have rules they don't like as 13 and 14-year-olds, and they all want to talk about it. And so it's like, once they get going and they get open about it, it's just really funny to kind of see how, you start at the beginning of the year and they're like, I don't know, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this. And then it's like, by the end of the year, it's like, hey, Mr. Stone, here's one of these things I don't like. Let's talk about it. And it's like, this is like, that courage and speech idea that we've been doing as one of our themes at ACA this year. And I think this is part of that, is kind of helping them be courageous in their speech by having respectful discourse about things they don't agree with.
Yeah.
And it has been really cool to kind of see these 8th grade students grow into that. I think 8th grade is like the perfect age, right? They're not in high school yet, but they're also not in lower school anymore. They're becoming these little adults. And again, they have so much energy. And that's what I love about it, right? I just left class. I taught 3 8th grade classes this morning and was overjoyed at the end of every one of them, because we're just having fun. Yeah. We're talking about the Great Depression and Herbert Hoover and FDR. And they're like so into it because I don't know why. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's just the way things are in that room, S207. But it's just, they have so much joy. Yeah. They have so much excitement. And again, they can be cynical. They can be angry. They can be all the things that people say about middle schoolers. But if you find a way to understand them and kind of nurture them and help them grow into who they are without kind of, having arbitrariness, right? Like that's what they don't like is arbitrary rules, and that's what gets them fired up. Mm-hmm. And so I told them at the beginning of the year, I don't make them ask to go to the bathroom, which, as other teachers like, you're crazy. Mm-hmm. I haven't had a problem with it all year. Yeah. They respect the rule. They know why it's there. And I tell them, okay, if you go at the beginning of class, that's a little bit disrespectful. If you go as soon as we start our lecture, that's a little bit disrespectful. If you go at the last 5 minutes of class right before break, again, that's probably not the best time to go, right? If we have independent work, go. Get up and go. Like, you don't need to ask me. Like, just go, right? If we're kind of 20 minutes in and you're like, oh, man, I really got to go to the bathroom, just go. Yeah. And so I've used that this year, and for the first time ever, and it's been amazing to me how well they've held to it. And also, class hasn't been disrupted by hands being up and me thinking it's a question or a thoughtful comment, and instead it's, can I go to the bathroom?
It's the least disruptive way to make that happen.
Exactly. Actually. Yeah. And I don't have to be like, is it an emergency? Is it this? No, there's no questions. Just get up and go. Yeah. And then they come back and we're right back into it. Yeah. And I keep a log up on my desk, actually, just in case, like there's a kid who goes, let's say he goes
too often.
Right. He goes 5 times in the week. And it's like, hey, that's a lot of class time missed. Let's have a little chat about it. Yeah. But I haven't had to. Yeah. Which is fascinating.
It's like a great way to teach self-governance is to give a little.
Exactly. Right. And that's what I told them. I said, guys, you might think this is crazy, but here's where I'm coming from as your teacher. I'm trying to give you some self-governance. Mm-hmm. And the hard part is that for them is understanding that, like, and this is what all kids do, right? Well, so-and-so doesn't do it this way, right? Or, going to another classroom, Mr. Stone does it this way. It's like, well, guys, that's not how this works, right? Every teacher is different. They have different personalities. And so it's like, again, it's that teaching how to have respectful conversations again. And so it's like, you guys, I do it this way. This is my way of giving you self-government. Other teachers are going to do things different ways to give you that as well, right? Yeah. And so it's a really cool thing, though, that a kind of understanding that I have with them. It's created a really cool rapport with the 8th graders this year. Yeah. And like we can have conversations about things and even rules, and they do such a great job with it. And like I said, this group, again, my shout out to them. I've been just overjoyed to teach them, and
That's awesome.
Just love being around them.
So do you have to spend a lot of time or energy to convince them of the goodness of studying history?
I don't think so. And I think part of that is because it's a lot of stories.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that a lot of what is happening at the front of the board, I'm laughing because that's a lot of times I'm insane at the front of the board. I like to move around and jump around and yell and all these other things. So like, there's so much going on in my room that it's hard to be like not convinced, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I get parents that talk to me all the time, or I've had all the time over the last 7 years, like, hey, you make history come alive for my students. And so it's like, I'm showing them the beauty and the wonderful story of American history, or the two world wars when we get to World War I and World War II, or the Cold War, or the Civil Rights Movement. And I show them how incredible this stuff is, and I don't have to spend a lot of time convincing them, like, you must or you need to know history for these reasons. Like, no, let's just get into the story. Let's read a primary source, and let's talk about it. And it's like, I mean, you know, one of the ones we did this year, this is a new one that I did. It's in the History 8 reader, which for the first time ever, I put together a full reader of readings for the whole year. It's 340 pages. It's beautiful. I love it. It's one of my favorite things.
It's a lot of work, I can imagine.
Yes, it was, but it's one of my favorite things I've ever done. I wish I would have done it a lot sooner, but it is so great. But one of the ones I put in there was, it's called Me and My Flapper Daughters by William Oscar Saunders. It's fascinating. It's this father talking about or lamenting the fact that his daughters are flappers and they have these really bad habits and these really bad vices that women of his age, or, you know, like his wife or his mother, they would have never had, right? He tells a story about his daughter taking his pack of cigarettes and lighting up a cigarette in the house and just being, he says, I was flabbergasted like at this bold behavior. But it ends with this beautiful kind of, I'm trying to understand my daughters. I want to know them so that I can better love them. It's like, I don't agree with the way that they are, but I do want to know who they are, and I want to love them. I mean, it's just fascinating. Yeah. And the kids were like, you know, I was like, how many of you guys feel like your parents don't understand you? And of course, they're like, all of us. It's like, it's that teen angst thing that we do, right? But seeing this father write this way about his daughters who he didn't understand and who didn't like the way they were, like, opened some kind of door for them to be like, oh, sometimes adults do understand us. Yeah. Sometimes our parents do and like they're trying to.
Right.
Like, one student read the whole thing with their mom. Yeah. And they talked about it. Which, like, if you're taking my primary sources home and reading them with your parents and then talking about them, we're winning.
That's a big
right?
win.
Like that is like, you know, the Portrait of a Graduate project that ACA is doing. We want to answer the questions: how will our students act? How will they speak? How will they write? And if our students are acting with an excitement for history, if they're acting or speaking with their parents about the history they're learning, and they speak with this wonder and reverence and this curiosity, we're winning.
That's right.
Right? We are doing the things that we're supposed to be doing because these kids are fully invested in learning American history through primary sources and through beautiful storytelling.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, you've touched on it a little bit, but what are the distinctions of teaching history in a classical school that might be different, say, than in a progressive school? Yeah.
You know, I think the biggest difference, well, actually, I shouldn't say the biggest difference. There's a lot of differences, and they're all big. You know, a lot of what we do revolves around primary readings. And so that right there already separates classical education from progressive education.
As opposed to a textbook, for example.
Right, as opposed to a textbook. I've taught middle school history for 7 years. We've never once used a textbook, and I don't plan to use one anytime soon. The Western Civ courses have gone back and forth at ACA. They've used textbooks. They haven't used textbooks. Dr. Farmer, for the last, I think, 4 years? I think it's 4 years. He has not used a textbook. He just uses primary source readings. He's got a beautiful reader. He's got one for Western Civ 1 and Western Civ 2, and it's the whole year's worth of readings, primary source documents. And then he's got a couple primary books that he reads as well. And then same thing in U.S. history and modern European history, right? Modern European history is used a textbook a couple times. The hard part there is like you want students to have some background knowledge as they go into their primary sources, and so the textbook can help with that. But we've gone back and forth on whether or not we use it. But that's a huge difference right there. The other part of it is, so like we're reading these primary sources and we're studying some of these great works of history, whether it's speeches or diaries or letters or these other things, right? But we're also teaching history. A lot of times these history classes, they become social studies, right? In public schools, you're learning social studies. That doesn't always mean you're doing history, right? Sometimes it's economics, sometimes it's social theory, sometimes it's take your pick of thing, right? It's looking at things through a different kind of lens, and you're also not going to get the depth. Now, there's, I wrote a paper about this difference specifically at the University of Dallas, in Dr. John Peterson's class, and one of the things that really sticks out is that the difference between kind of classical history, again, is that you're actually doing history, and whereas social studies, to get kids interested, and this is the kind of interesting part, to get and keep kids interested in public schools, they'll use current events. And so everything is tied to current events. It turns out this actually is not compelling for students.
Yeah.
And so, they do all this research that says current events is the way to get kids involved in history because it keeps them, aware of what's going on around the world around them. It's interesting to them because it's happening right now and that's their world. Well, it turns out that actually isn't the case, right? It's funny because one of the studies that I read was like, this is the way to teach history to middle schoolers is to do current events and to really make them feel like it's a part of their world. And then it describes the history classroom for those kids, and it's watching movies, or it's looking at PowerPoints, or it's doing group projects on a myriad of different things, but none of it is like actually sitting down and learning history. It's just, let's do these projects, let's do these other things, let's connect it to current events. And then it turns out when you get to the end of the year, what's everyone's least favorite class? History. Which is why, it's such an anomaly. And I think that's why parents get so excited when they come talk to me about history or their kids' history classes, and they're like, history is my kid's favorite class. And then they'll say in the next breath, it was never my favorite class. It was always boring and dull and these things. Right. And it's like, then we weren't doing it right? Yeah. And again, it's become more of a current events thing in progressive schools or public schools. It's become more of a social studies. We jam pack a bunch of different things in there. And then on top of that, it becomes merely, because it's current events and kind of social studies, it becomes skill acquisition.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's focused upon what skills can we give these kids before they leave this history class with no background knowledge, no content knowledge, right? So history becomes kind of like this, this place where a lot of the progressive methods of teaching, that becomes the experimentation ground, is history class. And so everybody's experimenting with different methods of teaching, not really focused on content. Whereas like for us, it's all about the content. It's and if you ask any one of the teachers in my department, what do they need? More time.
More time.
Because they want to get to the content and go into real depth with it and spend so many countless hours talking with these kids about the history.
Yeah. So you've been recognized for this, I think, across the Hillsdale network a little bit. For how you've constructed your classroom. And one of the things we're really interested in is students having great conversations about the text-centered debate and conversation, argument, and so forth. But many of them enter the classroom not knowing a whole lot about the period. So how do you kind of structure your class that in ways that lead to great conversation?
Yeah, this is great. This is a great kind of bit here with the Hillsdale thing, because I did a talk about this, the 90-10 method. So feels like so long ago now. It was only like 3 years ago. But anyway, basically it was like, 90% of the time we're going to do lecture notes and we're going to do the same thing pretty much every day. And we're going to kind of get into the story and do the storytelling. And I'm going to write notes on the whiteboard and you guys are going to be taking notes, getting all of that background information. The other part of class, we'll be taking notes, right? We'll be doing these things, but we'll also be looking at those events and all that lecture stuff through the lens of the primary sources. And so we've got the background from one day of class. The next day, we come back to class after having a primary source reading. Now we can talk about that primary source reading. And so one of the things I've tried to do is kind of gauge, okay, how much can we actually talk about said document, right? And so, we talk about in the classical education world, Socratic discussion and Socratic seminars, and where we're, peppering students with questions. And those are great. But it's also hard in a history class when you don't have a textbook and you have to do a lot of lecture to kind of get kids that background knowledge. So it's kind of a scale, right? So certain texts, I'm reading it with them and we're explaining it and we're talking about it and we're talking about it in connection to those events. Or if I give it to them for homework, I always put, one of my favorite assignments is to have them generate 2 questions. So write 2 questions of the text based on what you read. And then we'll come back into class and our warm-up will be, okay, what are those questions? Let's talk about them, right? Or even I'll just say, okay, guys, you're driving our conversation today with your questions. Let's just talk about what you have to talk about. A lot of times, especially towards the end of 8th grade, they start asking the questions I want them to ask.
Right.
It's like the most important questions of the discussion, they're asking now because they've done it from 7th grade and now 8th grade, and we're at the end of 8th grade, and they've done it for 400 pages worth of primary sources. It's like they know what they're talking about. Now this year, kind of what you're saying, I've kind of added some twist to this. So we're still doing lots of notes, right? That's something that we just do. And I'm trying to kind of pull back from that a little bit and do less whiteboard notes and kind of train them into being able to hear and take notes. So from what they hear, what they see on the board, and be able to take notes that way. But also, I've integrated a graded seminar. So in these graded seminars, I've given them questions to prepare for. So both of them we've done 2, and they're 4 questions. The first one I had 4 groups. Each group got one of the questions, and they were supposed to prepare for that question. The second one, they had to prepare for all 4 questions. And then I said, okay, we're going to go through this question by question. You guys are talking. I'm writing on the whiteboard. I'm not involved in this. This is your conversation, right? This is you guys leading this graded seminar on these 4 questions. They've been amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
I like the first one was on My Pedagogic Creed by John Dewey. Because one of the focuses, I should probably clarify, one of the focuses of my American history class, since we do 2 years of American history, 7th and 8th grade, but one of the things I've tried to integrate is a history of American education. Took a class in the summer before I graduated at the University of Dallas on the history of American education, and it was just fascinating to me. And so for our students who are always wondering, why do we do things this way at ACA? What is classical education? I've kind of integrated strategically in every unit sources about American education. So My Pedagogic Creed is one of them by John Dewey. It's a foundational progressive document, but it's also really hard to understand. They talked for 50 minutes about that document. I didn't interject a single time. It was just them. And they talked about it with 97% accuracy, even interpreting it better than I ever could have imagined.
That's great.
It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, there was a student who said, basically, John Dewey wants to create a school that's a mini city where students are doing certain functions within that mini city that they will then do outside the city or outside the school. And for him to say that with no prior instruction in this,
Yeah, pretty insightful.
That's nail on the head. Like, you have no idea how well you summarize that. Especially, like, that's putting it in language that an 8th grader can understand, too. I was blown away. I emailed that student's parents right away and was like, this was incredible.
Yeah.
But we've done 2 of those graded seminars where they've talked about text. The second was over Wilson's War Message to Congress in World War I. Also fascinating as they're like arguing whether or not Wilson had good reasons to go to war, and whether or not that it was unrestricted submarine warfare, or was it actually make the world safe for democracy, and is that a good goal? They did that all themselves.
Wow.
And other than giving them the prep work and just having kind of trained them in primary sources for the past year and a half, the rest of it was them.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And like that's what our history students should be doing, right? Like we should be getting to a point where, you know, in 7th and 8th grade, we're training them through these primary sources. We're telling them these incredible stories. We're giving them the background knowledge. And you know, for middle school, we do a lot more note taking and a lot more background stuff to get them that content. So when they get to their upper level 9th through 12th grade classes, they have the skills and they also have some background knowledge to be able to talk intelligently about certain things, right? So, you know, I'm teaching 11th grade government right now too. And, you know, they don't remember everything I taught them in 8th grade, but there are certain things. And it's really interesting kind of seeing which things they kind of remember. One of the things that they had a lot of thoughts about or that they remembered was Brown versus Board, which was one of the second semester civil rights things we did. And we talked about that court case and what it meant and all these other things. And they remembered several different things from that. And that's really cool to see.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of what we've been up to.
So I want to ask you to kind of pan out a little bit. I want to ask you about the mission of our schools. In its short form, we talk about the mission being to form knowledgeable, virtuous citizens. I wonder if you could just kind of give your insight as to what that mission means, and then perhaps set history into that. How does history play a role?
It's a great question, and I think that for us, we feel the weight of it, especially the American citizens part. And there's a tension because it's hard, right? Because the middle school curriculum used to be, it was different. It was kind of modern European and 2 world wars, and then it was U.S. history in the second half. So it wasn't fully U.S. history, and now it's fully U.S. history. And it's like there are some good reasons for that. Hillsdale made that change, and we kind of followed suit with them. And I think again, there's good reasons for that as we need that kind of foundational. And so, you know, these kids for 7th and 8th grade, they do this really in-depth study of American history. And again, they have that going forward into the rest of like Western Civ 1 and 2, and then they get to 11th grade U.S. history and American government. And so that part of it, I think, you know, myself is just trying to figure out how do we continue to make these kids the American citizens part. And what does that look like? Because that's hard.
Yeah.
You know, and the knowledgeable and virtuous part, I feel like for myself, I can kind of define that really easily, right? And make it so that, like, you know, knowledgeable, obviously that's the intellect, right? We're in the classroom, we're learning stuff, we're remembering stuff, we're able to retrieve information, we're able to just know stuff, right? We have stuff that we just know. Or the virtuous side, which is, you know, one of my favorite parts is again molding those students from 7th and 8th grade and then even beyond into good people, right? As we always like to say, being good friends to your friends, right? And that's like, I love that. And we use so much of history for the kind of moral imagination with our primary sources of, like, you know, like, was this courageous? Like, was this or was this is this a good example of self-government or is it not, right? What are the excesses of this, right? And then once you get into 10th and 11th grade, you can start bringing in Aristotle and talking about it that way, along with the history, which is really cool. But yeah, that American citizen part is the one that I like to focus on, in the sense of, like, how do we do this well?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that just like how do we not, you know, everyone wants to talk about, you know, indoctrination or things like this, and it's like, how do we just get our kids to kind of think about that? And, you know, we always talk about, we want our kids to love certain things.
Right.
And I think if they love certain parts of American history, certain parts of American government, then they're going to be good American citizens.
Yeah. Right.
And, you know, like we've talked about it in government all year, right? Like the Constitution, we read, almost all of the Federalist Papers, which is kind of crazy with 11th graders.
Challenging read.
Right, but they loved it, and they've loved the stuff since then. And so, what I've been trying to get them to do, and this American citizens part, is like have good debate and good conversation, right? Like we talked about earlier with the 8th grade students, just kind of how do we get to where they can talk about things respectfully.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, if our students can kind of leave ACA talking about any topic respectfully and, hear other people's opinions without anger or malice or just automatically saying they have bad intentions,
Yep.
then I think that's the American citizens part that comes in, right? You understand enough of American history and also the Bill of Rights to be able to talk and converse about any number of topics,
Yeah.
right? And not get mad or angry or whatever about those things, right?
Yeah. And the habit and the practice of making those arguments from the text
Yes.
is one that we inculcate
Mm-hmm.
from a young age, and one that you're really
Right.
driving home
Right.
in middle school.
Absolutely.
Less about sort of I feel and my opinion, and a lot more
Absolutely.
what
Right.
did the experts or those that went before
Mhm.
us have to say about this.
And I think part of that American citizen part too is like being able to go back to the past and look at those documents rather than just kind of say, I think it's this, or I feel like this. Well, it's like, okay, but what does the tradition say about this?
Yeah.
What do the great works say about this?
Yeah.
And I think that if our students are doing that, they're going to be great American citizens who want to use the influences of the past to be good people.
Yeah.
And that's how you get good citizens, I think.
That's right. Well said. Talk about your role as department chair a little bit. What are the kinds of things that you and the other history teachers are concerned with this year? What do y'all talk about when you get together?
Yeah. We have a lot of fun. We talk about a lot of different things. But, obviously there's always logistical things we like to talk about, or what we do talk about, such as, the U.S. history 11th grade milestone test at the end of the year, which is not a big focus of ours, but we do talk about it. We talk about the 8th grade one as well. And so for Mr. Holt, who does that with the 11th graders, it's really interesting how well we do.
Yeah.
And that's been true, for the last 4 years. So, there's been 3 different teachers in that time, one of whom was Mrs. Stone, my wife, Mrs. Henry now, and then Mr. Holt. And all 3 of them have just knocked it out of the park with that test.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool thing, right? It speaks to what we're doing in the classroom in terms of primary sources, writing assignments, everything that we're doing in that U.S. history class is working.
Yeah.
Right? These kids know their stuff, and then they get on that test and they do really well. We had a perfect score on it, which is
Pretty strong.
Amazing, right?
Amazing.
That's incredible. And so, that's something we talk about. We'll talk about,
Especially since the standards underlying
Right.
that test are not specifically our
Right.
curriculum.
Right. We're not teaching to the test at all,
Right.
right? And we're teaching U.S. history, but we're teaching it in a way that's very different. We've had students also take the AP U.S. history test and get 5s.
Yeah.
And we don't teach to that at all either, at all.
Yeah.
But we also talk about primary sources. We talk about, best practices in the classroom. A lot of our time we spend, talking about how best to use class time. Or I one of the things that one of my favorite parts of my job is the coaching aspect. Coaching teachers and kind of helping them and observing them and watching them, which is, I've like I said, for the last 2 years I've taught 6 classes, so I haven't been able to do that. So this year teaching 4 has been great because I have so much more time to go watch teachers teach and then talk to them about their teaching.
Yeah.
Or I have time to sit down with them at lunch and meet with them and talk about it. And to me, that's what I love doing, is getting into a classroom and then being able to coach and talk about it. And it always revolves around how do we best use PowerPoints that don't make class not dynamic or not fun. How do we integrate certain assignments? How do we get kids to remember stuff? So one of the big things we've been talking about this year is this kind of TISC framework. I'm sure every parent that's going to watch this is going to be like, TISC, oh no, here we go.
Yeah.
But a TISC is literally a thing I should know.
Yeah.
And so, my class, we start every day with a TISC, and it's a question that students should know like that. And, the way I do it is sometimes I'll give it to them the first time, won't be graded. They get the right answer, they put it in their binder. Second time, it's graded, and it's all or nothing. So if you miss 1, it's a 0. I don't often put it in the grade book as a 0 because I just don't Mr. Shepps has said, I've gone soft. I don't have the heart to be like,
zeros are pretty devastating.
Right.
I will say.
And so it's like, I don't have, so, a kid gets one of the two right, I'll give them a 2 out of 5 instead of a 0. But the kid still sees the 0. To me, what I'm trying to do with them in class is like see the 0, but also realize, okay, I don't know that. I just need to go know it. And so they don't feel so much pain at that grade because they might see them, a couple times a week.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to train them that like, that's okay.
Yeah.
These things, you will get a couple 0. You will fail.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, it's another chance.
Yeah.
Right?
You're
Get
their attention.
Get back up and do it again. And
That's
so
right.
there's kind of a building of perseverance there,
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun for me, not necessarily for all the kids always, but they're like, why, Mr. Why all or nothing? It's like, well, because it's helping you. But now, so I can pull now at this point in the year, I can pull a TISC from Unit 1, give it to them today. It's going to be graded, but also they know it.
Mm-hmm.
So, the government class, I gave them one that we did in August. Who wrote the Federalist Papers? Which 3 authors? Almost all of them got it all right. They just knew it. And it was like that. It was instant. And so that's kind of what we've been focusing on in the department. And I think, all the other departments have been too, is like, we want our students to know stuff. And there are certain things that they should know and be able to articulate like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this kind of TISC framework is trying to do is to have those things like there and they just know them. And I've got like, for history at this point, I've got like 30.
Yeah.
And I can pull any one of those and I'm going to keep creating new ones and giving them new ones. But these 8th graders now, they know a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you just ask them, just boom, they just know it. And the other way we've kind of talked about this and using TISC, and this is something we've talked about a lot in the history department, is how do we assess our students? What's the best way to assess them? Because it's really hard to write a really good history test. And I've struggled with it for 7 years, and I'm always looking for better ways of doing it. I think Dr. Farmer, shout out to him, his tests are incredible. He does such a good job getting the students to think and reason and apply the things they've learned, not just kind of regurgitate things, but also like using their skills of reading a quotation and then analyzing it on a test and using their memory for a map, right? Yeah. He makes them use all these different skills that they practice all the time, and I think he just does a fantastic job with it. It's awesome. It's like, for me, it's a goal for me to kind of make tests like his, and I see his, and I'm like, man, I just got to get a little bit better. Yeah. But with the TISC framework, what we've done is we're adding stuff to, so I just gave a Unit 4 test. The vocabulary for that test had vocabulary from Units 1, 2, 3, and 4. So students needed to know vocab from all those different units. So what we're trying to inculcate in the students is the stuff you learn in Unit 1 is still important when you get to Unit 4.
Yeah,
right? So we don't want students to cram.
Right.
We want them to actually know that stuff. And if you cram, you don't just know it. It's in there and then it's out. Right? You got the 100 on the test, but what do you know? If I ask you in May who was a part of the Central Powers, do you know it? And I want them to be able to know it. And that's kind of where the TISC idea came from. And that's occupied a lot of our conversation in the department. And how do we best assess with that? And so that's great. That's kind of what we've worked on.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about one of the practices that I think is pretty unique and distinctive at Atlanta Classical Academy is our practice of meeting with every 8th grade student in kind of a small group, small ceremony, and presenting their character traits and their accomplishments back to them. Yeah. It's been, tell our audience about that, because I think that's a really unique cultural distinctive.
It's, I'm trying not to cry. It's one of my favorite things that we do. We do it every year. We meet with every 8th grade student and their parents, and we make a report for them, and that report has comments from teachers kind of praising students and the things that we see in them. And it's a moment for us as teachers to sit down, look at the parents in the eye, look at the students in the eye, and tell them all the wonderful things that we see in their student. It is both those things are present and true about your student, but they're also a challenge, right, to continue living into those good things. And I want to give a shout out to Christy Yonkers. She's the one who schedules all of it and does most of the legwork for it. And she is incredible at it. The first year, we did this, I think it was 5 years now. Me and Mr. Sheps one night had an idea, how are we going to connect with these 8th grade students? We had a particularly kind of tough 8th grade class, a lot of apathy and cynicism, but we were like, we love these kids and we want to connect with them. How do we do this? And so we had this idea to bring in all the parents and do one-on-one meetings with every single student. And I kind of planned it and kind of haphazardly put it together. And it was a lot of work and a lot of early mornings trying to get everybody on the right page and get the reports made. But we did it, and Miss Yonker has been incredible at putting that together. But it's just the best time of the year. It's a lot of work and it's really hard. And in the trenches of it, you're like, this is rough. But then you have these moments where students give feedback to their teachers, and they're like, "To Kill a Mockingbird changed my life." Yeah. And they talk about all the books that they've read and these other things, and it's like, whoa, this is crazy.
Very impactful.
And we've had parents that are like, we framed our report. It's up in their room. We've had parents say that their kids were somewhere at a camp and they sent it as a letter to them as like a, keep going, like we're cheering you on. These are things that we believe in you. And it's like, and we've pulled them up at different times and looked at them with students, and it's just incredible. And again, we take that time, and these parents are like, we wish we had this, right? Like we wish somebody spoke this way to us. And it's like, for us, again, it's a lot of work, but it's a huge win for all these kids. And then on the report, each kid has an epithet that we give them. So it's this little phrase that we use to try to capture the whole student, right? And just one little kind of creative phrase. And one of them, for example, is X student was master of the keys, right? Student who's a really good leader, right? They have the ability to kind of open doors for other students and show students the beauty of certain things, right? It's really cool,
what a positive self-label to take on that.
Yeah, and one of my favorite ones is Minister of Mirth, right? The student who helps kind of minister joy and happiness with everybody else around them. And we've used that one a couple times. It's one of those classics that we've held on to because it's just so good, and each class needs a minister of mirth, and it's just an incredible practice that we've done, and I love that we've continued doing it. Again, it's so much work and it can be exhausting, but at the end of the day, it's like, this is so worth it. And these kids and these parents, they need to hear these things. And again, they're moving out of 8th grade into high school, and it's like, this is our kind of moment to tell you how much we care about you and to show you the beautiful things that you bring to the table at our school or anywhere that you go.
That's right.
And continue living into them, right? This is the challenge to you, right? We see these great things. Now, go do it even better as a high schooler. Yeah. Go do it even more so as you get to, your junior and senior year. Continue that.
Yeah.
Show everybody these things that we see and live into it. And so it's, that's the fun part too, is seeing older kids grow into it, right? And kind of become the things that we kind of spoke to them.
Right.
And, teaching the 11th graders now after having them in 8th grade and they went through this process, some of them have gone through this, right? Like they have lived into this. I think of like, some of them have really taken on the leadership roles that we kind of spoke into them, or some of them have taken the creative route and have really leaned into their creativity. And like, that's really cool.
That's really great.
And it started with a conversation in 8th grade that could easily be not happen, but we decided, no, we want to do this. And so we're really intentional with it. And every year we get every single student.
Yeah.
And last year we were done before spring break. Again, all props to Ms. Yonker.
It takes a lot of discipline to get all that done. I think, above all, it may be the positive feedback I get most from parents from time to time.
I love that.
Because it's a very human question that everybody asks, but most certainly middle school students are asking, who am I?
Yeah.
How do I fit into the world?
Right.
Does anybody see me?
Yeah.
Who am I going to be? All those existential questions, and you guys really step into that gap at that moment from a really a position of love and of knowing them.
Lots of tears.
Lots of tears. But I'm
Lots
telling
of
you,
tears.
It tends to land with kids and parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who also sometimes need a little bit of encouragement around
absolutely.
the best traits of their own children.
Yep. We've had, in fact, mostly dads cry.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Which has been kind of surprising, but also really cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see just the love the parents have for their kids and to be able to tell them those things.
It's beautiful. I mean, as a dad, I know why that is. I mean, I do think there's a time, and it does happen right around middle school, where our kids really do start to look outside of the family for guidance and leadership. And boy, as a dad, there's nothing more powerful than knowing that your child is surrounded by men and women, coaches and teachers and leaders and the like, who are going to encourage them and lift them up and point them in a positive direction. So I think that's why the tears come. Maybe it's obvious, but it's a really great tradition that you guys have started, and I think I'm glad to see it continuing.
Yeah.
So let's shift a little bit. I want to ask you about coaching. You're an athlete yourself and a sports guy.
Try to be.
In addition to all the other, I'm glad you pared your teaching load down from 6 to 4 courses.
You're telling me.
I remember there was a time where you're teaching 6 courses in the middle of graduate school, and coaching might have been a more difficult time of your life.
It was rough.
But talk about your coaching. What do you do, and what do you derive from that?
Man, I've coached soccer. I was an assistant coach for soccer on a state championship run. That was a lot of fun. It's really incredible. And then I've coached varsity basketball. This is my second year. I coached middle school girls basketball. We won a championship with that team. That was an absolute blast. And then last year, coached varsity girls basketball and made the state playoffs the first time in school history. That was really cool. And that included a comeback win in a region game that we were down 19.
Wow.
And if we wouldn't have won, we wouldn't have made the state playoffs. So that was crazy. We were down 9 with a minute left. I think the biggest thing with coaching is just being able to continue molding the virtue side of things outside of a classroom, and showing students, the perseverance, the sacrifice, the self-government, the discipline, the courage needed to succeed on a team, the camaraderie. Like we're all struggling and suffering together as we kind of, especially conditioning and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. And going through the games and winning or losing and knowing how to win or lose well. And I think that, last year with the girls varsity team, my goal was to build a culture, right? There hasn't been one. And that's, there's many different factors to that. But, I wanted to create a culture for this team. And one of the things we did is we rode the bus together to every game, even the home games. And then the girls at the beginning of the season were like, oh, we want to drive our cars. And I was like, sorry. You got to ride the bus. Mm-hmm. We're trying to build something. By the end of the year, they all wanted to ride the bus everywhere, together, to every place because of how close the team got. And so, for me, at the end of the season, I didn't kind of realize kind of how much of a family we had become until the end of the season. We lose that game down at Taylor County, and we go to the locker room, and it's just tears and hugs everywhere. Yeah. And everyone, and one of our players, she looks around and says, "We're a family. We're not a team. We're a family." And it was like, this is incredible. Yeah. And so using athletics and the pursuit of excellence to teach virtue is kind of like, what I get out of the coaching, and it's another avenue of teaching, right? And for me, basketball's always been such a big part of my life, and something that's so important to me. Because of my family, and my grandpa played at Butler University in the 50s. All my cousins have played. One of them played in college, and just also wanted to play in college myself. Obviously, didn't happen, but it's just a thing I love, and I love watching the game and breaking the game down. And if I can use basketball, the sport that I love, to also teach virtue, that's a huge win.
That's awesome.
Coach Voppel and I talk about it a lot, this idea of building excellence through athletics and through the suffering and discipline of athletics. And I think that there's so much good in that. I think there's a lot of classical tie-in too. I think that part of the classical model includes manual labor or hard work, right? Like doing physical activity. And I think that is something that for us, especially because, we we have limited facilities. We don't have kind of like a shop class or something like this where we could have students doing manual labor. Athletics is kind of our avenue of doing that.
That's
and
right.
So the more students we have playing sports, the better, which the cool thing is so many of our students play multiple sports.
That's right.
And it's like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That is an avenue of virtue that we need to be taking a lot of advantage of. And I think we are. Like we really are. And it's super cool to do that.
No, that's great. That's great. All right. Well, tell me about some of the goals you have for your year here. You were sharing with me before we started. Maybe tell us about that.
Yeah. So, I've had a couple important goals this year. One, not having as many classes, as I said earlier, is getting into classrooms and observing, being able to see other teachers. And that's, I mostly focus on my own history teachers in my department, the, 9 through 12 teachers. And then I really want to get into the lower school history classes and kind of see what they're up to and figure out what they're doing. And for me, the reason I want to do that is to kind of just see what they're doing and also make sure we're curriculum aligned and make sure that like we're building those blocks into so that when kids get to 7th grade, they're ready for 7th grade history. And I think that is a collaborative project that could be a lot of fun working with them and just kind of having conversations about what we're doing in the history classes. Some of my other goals have been around, making really good tests. Like I said, is something that I haven't really been great at. And I think that I really want to be great at it. And so making better tests for students and then making sure they know things, right? The whole TISC thing. And then lastly, this was a very personal goal, but I've had a goal to be published a couple times this year. One was a book review I wrote for a biography of Emile Zola that just came out, and it was published in Law and Liberty on October 17th, which is really cool.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
it
great.
was just a really cool thing. A friend helped me kind of get that together and kind of pushed me to do it. And seeing it online was just like Christmas Day. It was just like really cool to be like, wow, that's
amazing.
That's there. One of my other goals has been to continue writing since I'm done with grad school. It's just be thinking and writing and reading about education. This summer I read a whole bunch of stuff about American education, starting with Closing of the American Mind by Alan Bloom, which is fascinating. I would like to write a review on that, but I haven't yet. Yeah. And then the other one was How Children Fail by John Holt, who's a progressive educator from the 1960s. But it's fascinating. And I really want to get a review of that one done because I think he has certain things in his work that classical teachers do need to hear. Yeah. Specifically with classroom management and making sure students are being, disciplined or managed through love and not fear. Mm-hmm. And I think that he has a lot of things that are really helpful for kind of understanding where the students are coming from. And so like there's just kind of we do a reading by John Holt in 8th grade, and it's like, yeah, guys, there's some kind of strange overlap here between progressive education and classical education. Because John Holt, one of the things he says is like, get rid of grades. We don't want grades. Grades create wrong incentives. They lead to cheating and all these other things. And I, as a classical educator who wants his students to know things and not worry about a grade percentage, I think there's something to that. I want my students to learn and not necessarily worry about this silly letter that goes on a transcript, right? And how do you do that? I don't know. Just get rid of grades.
It's a tough one.
Which I've told students like in that 8th grade class, like, guys, I think maybe we should get rid of grades. And they look at me like, wait, what?
You give us sense of justice kicks in maybe.
Yeah, you give us all these grades. That's crazy.
Right.
But as I've said, writing is one of the big goals, and kind of publishing on my Substack, just things about education, book reviews, things about the liberal arts, things about classical works. I wrote one of the things I published on there was a analysis of 3 novels, Tale of Two Cities, Picture of Dorian Gray, and Pride and Prejudice. It's one of the things I wrote for the University of Dallas. It's like super long, but I don't know. I'm just putting them out there. Yeah. And then I just published one on my Substack recently on rhetoric and the rhetoric in the history classroom and using rhetoric to teach primary sources. And that one, really cool. Just found out today, was picked up by Classical Ed Review and was put on that Substack. So Classical Ed Review takes all of the news about classical education and classical ed thought and puts them all together in one place. And so my Substack was linked with that essay in Classical Ed Review.
Awesome.
And the cool part about that is it's ran by Dr. Paul Weinhold, who is at the University of Dallas. He did my comprehensive exam in the spring, and so just a really cool thing to just kind of wake up this morning and hear from Mr. Sheps that my essay was on there, and it's just like, whoa. And really my goal was to be published twice, and that was kind of, the book review and then being on Classical Ed Review. There it is.
There it is.
Just
well, congratulations. That's really
cool
a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really big deal. You have to be commended for that, and we'll do our best to link everybody up with those articles when we go to post this episode. I'd love for people to find you there. All right, Mr. Stone, let's shift in here as we start to close. We'll shift into the short answer session. I've got a couple of questions for you. You can answer these. Is there a teacher that's had a very significant positive impact on your life?
I love that question. Yes, Dr. Tom Connor. I almost teared up at Hillsdale. History professor. He taught me so much about loving your students and putting them first, and loving your material that you teach.
Yeah.
And his just influence in that, he is a brilliant scholar, historian, but he never wrote a book until just recently. I think it was 2019. He wrote a book on World War I and history and monuments, like the monumental history, like these different monuments from World War I and how they're taken care of. It's pretty fascinating stuff. But he spends all of his time in the classroom with his students and talking to his students. So he could be out writing and doing these other things, and he does do them. But he puts so much emphasis on loving his students well and teaching them well.
Yeah.
Because he loves his material and he loves his students. And if you go to Hillsdale, or if you've been a student at Hillsdale and you've taken a class of his, odds are he's your favorite teacher.
Yeah.
And
what a great model.
I've seen him so many times since being at Hillsdale. I haven't seen him in a while. But one of the first years I was out of Hillsdale, I went back with my wife, and he was retiring, and he had all these books, all these history books, like hundreds of them. And he was like, I don't have anywhere to put them. Do you want them? Yes. Yes, I do. And so I have just a huge assortment of his books on World War I, World War II,
Amazing.
European history, French, German. I mean, take your pick. And one of my favorite classes of his was Russian history from the very beginning to 1917. And so got books from that. And just the stuff I got was just incredible. And he's just so generous to be like, do you guys want this?
Yeah.
And we just happened to be there when he was cleaning his stuff out. And it's incredible. My senior year, every Friday, he and I had lunch together.
Yeah.
The best time of my life. I mean, the conversations, the things we talked about, just incredible.
What a great model.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Classical or historical figure that has been most impactful to you?
11th graders are going to love this. Cicero.
Okay. Yeah.
Cicero is one of the ones, and it's his insistence on fellowship.
Yeah.
His insistence on community. Community was an idea that began my studies at University of Dallas. It was something that just kept coming up. I think I wrote in that first semester or first 2 semesters, I think I wrote 3 papers on community and the importance of community for education, the importance of community for virtue and virtue formation. And so Cicero has just been the person. And I actually wrote I forgot about this, but I wrote a pretty long paper on his book 1 on duties, and just his descriptions of virtue and fellowship and community, and his insistence that you have to have a community to be virtuous, or virtue flourishes best within community. And so there's something about love and fellowship that is so important in that, and that requires a lot of reflection. But it just his description of that is just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that he calls you to be a better person through his work on duties, and he calls you to virtue. It's a letter to his son, so like it's you can kind of read it that way. It's like I need to be a better person, or I need to think about how to better grow in virtue, and Cicero has, I think, helped me do that. I bring him up all the time with that 11th grade class because they were in 8th grade when I was really studying that, and literally everything I talked about went back to Cicero, and they were like, Mr. Stone.
Well, that On Duties was one of the most impactful books to our founders. I mean, that's
they're like, Stone, you got to stop talking about Cicero. I'm like, never.
All right, kind of a modern question. In this age of digital distraction, how are you doing? What are your strategies to mitigate all that?
Ooh, they're not good.
Yeah.
I wish they were better.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things, though, in this realm is just the February freeze that we do.
Yeah. Say a little bit about that.
I think that it's just the best reset because, like we do, ACA does a February freeze, and basically it's a competition to see who can use their phone the least. Right. And so, there's a lot of different strategies. You can brick your phone, which is a little thing you scan, and then it locks everything down. You can put it in the time box thing that is locked for a certain amount of time. Or what I used an app last year. I forget, I think it was called Opal, maybe. I can't remember. But it basically just locks your phone, and you can't use anything other than basic messaging or basic things like a calculator function or something. But how's
that helpful for you?
It's helpful just because if I'm sitting there, whether it's at school or at home, and I want to get into that thing and I click on it, it pops up with the Opal app instead and says, looks like you're trying to get on social media.
A little accountability,
right
there.
And so it's like, oh, all right, I didn't really want to do that. I'm just bored, right. And so I think it helps. I think it helps put that into perspective of oh, you're bored. Oh, I don't really want to scroll through this. All right, you're right. Okay, and then you put your phone away.
Do something else.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'll continue doing the task I was doing and got distracted. For me, the easiest thing though is if I'm at school, just hitting Do Not Disturb, and then I could go a whole day with my phone on Do Not Disturb, and I won't even take it out of my pocket. Yeah. It's when I get home that's hard. Yeah. It's just.
Well, I don't think you're alone in that. We're all
it's just a struggle, and it bothers me, bothers my wife.
Yeah,
but
key point. I mean, most of us, I think, do reach for it in that moment of boredom, and it's just kind of a great reminder. You don't really want to do that. You'd really rather do something,
and
even if it's rest, would be more impact. More beneficial.
And that app was incredible. So I think it's called Opal, but it was really helpful, and just hey, stay off your phone.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
That's great. All right. To an aspiring teacher, say a college student who's considering the profession of teaching, what advice would you give them in terms of their studies and their way forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love it. Study the thing you want to teach, right? You want to teach history, study history. Yeah. You want to study, or if you want to teach science and a particular branch of science, biology, study biology. And study those things to the nth degree, right? So one of the advice that Dr. Connor gave me at Hillsdale, I was asking him, what should I read this summer history-wise? And he said, I'm not going to just go look up some history books, read them, and then make your own decision. Make your own, kind of form your own thoughts and analysis of them, right? I'm not going to recommend them to you per se, but just go buy some history books and read them. And so I think there's something to that of go study science, go study math, go study history. And then once you have this incredible understanding of it, I think for me, myself, and I hope it doesn't sound braggadocious, but my history is locked in there because I've studied it for so long. I've taught it for 7 years now. I can mostly teach from memory, which is a lot of fun because it allows the classroom to be super dynamic, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not looking down at my notes. I'm not looking at my computer. It's no, we're moving, and I'm telling the story. So just study it. And the other thing I would say is, because this is always the hard part for first-year teachers, is you get into the classroom and it's nothing what I expected. It's nothing what anybody told me. It's not. Visit a school and observe classes. Yeah. Sit in on classes. Talk to veteran teachers, as you're going into that first year. And there's, for me, I was lucky. My first teaching job was in Colorado at Liberty Common School. Mr. Rob Huey was one of my co-teach. He was a teacher of a different sixth grade section. So we had 3 sections, and I had one, and then there was Mr. Rob Huey, and then Miss Carrie Jerkins did the other one. So those 3 sections of sixth grade, we were all together. Rob had been teaching sixth grade for 16 years at that point. He had a wealth of knowledge, and he wanted to share it. So for me, and for this first year, go talk to the veteran teachers. They want to mentor you. They will help you, and your struggles are going to be the same as theirs.
Yeah.
What their struggles were when they started, it's pretty much the same. And so, Rob was always so great at just like helping me see, oh, these are normal first year struggles.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to get better. Right. As the year went on, of course, that's what happened. Right.
Yeah.
So when you're in November and it's like, oh man, things are going really bad. It's like, no, like it's going to get better. You're going to figure out how to do this. And also, here's 3 ways to make it better right now.
Yeah.
And so talk to your veteran teachers, get eyes on the classroom before the school year starts, observe, and then ask questions. Like don't be afraid to ask other teachers what's going to help you, right? And I think for me, just have a growth mindset. Be willing to kind of listen to criticism, take feedback, and see it as not a personal attack, but as like you're going to grow from it. You're going to become a better teacher. And it's just like sports, right? Like you need a coach to kind of help you get better at the game. It's the same. I always think of it in the same way of like, I'm getting coached up. I'm going to be a better teacher at the end of this.
Yeah.
So
well said. Where can people read more about you?
On my Substack, if they just search Zach Stone or Zachary Stone in the search bar, the Substack page is called Reflections on the Belles Lettres, Belle's Lettres, which is Belles Lettres is a kind of the beautiful letters, or it's kind of a great works, great books kind of phrase that's used. And so it's just the reflections on the Belles Lettres, and that's where I'm writing. So
that's great. That's great. Well, we'll do our best to link all that stuff up in the description below, as it were. And Zach, I just want to thank you for coming in and talking with me today. I know that you're hours away, or maybe less, from coaching a varsity girls basketball game tonight. So wish you luck there.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you for your leadership and for your commitment to our mission. You embody everything that I would certainly hope for a teacher for one of my own children. Your enthusiasm for your subject, your passion for your subject, your interested in developing the character and the virtue habits of excellence of our students. Your commitment to ongoing learning that you continue to pursue through your writing and through graduate school and so forth. I just think you embody everything we want in teachers, and I want to thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
So, all right, folks, we'll break it off there. I'm Matthew Kirby with Liberty Classical Schools. You can read more about us at libertyclassicalschools.org, and until next time, take care.